Greetings and welcome to Glitched Out Podcast number 3. I am your host, Lord X, and I welcome you to another great week. This week, relax, we don't have any E3 stuff to go over. Last week, whoo! Hot damn, that was a show. And we'll have another one of those in a week's time. This is the calm before the storm. And joining me once again on this podcast, the one, the only, Israel Pacheco.
Yep, it's me. I need a better saying or something. Like I'm always like, yep, I'm here. I need something more original. I don't know, but what's up, man? How's it going?
Oh, it's going good. How about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad.
Oh. Well, we got quite the show for the folks today. We've got quite a bit of news to talk about. A couple of games that got announced after we did our prediction show.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have. Well, Jesus. Yeah. Let's begin as we always do on this show with me botching my speech, and then move right into our been playing section. The games that we've been playing this past week. And Izzy, why don't you start us off? Tell us something that you've been playing.
So this is going to be a surprise, but I didn't play anything over the past week. Yeah, this is the first week in a long time where I just was like, yeah, I don't feel like gaming this week. I was busy, I don't know, watching movies, TV shows, so
Wow.
I didn't game this week, so...
Maybe we should have done the static screen podcast then.
Yeah, but it'll still be a good episode even then.
Yeah, for sure.
So what you play this week?
I play a few different things. I finished up Omega Quintet. Pretty sure I got the normal or bad ending to that game.
Bad ending?
Yeah, It just seemed normal. It ended. But yeah, I still enjoyed it though, and I might go back to it in the future and just use a walkthrough and maybe try and see the true ending to the game. But overall, I enjoyed it. It satisfied that JRPG itch that I've been needing for a while now. Type 0, I only played a little bit of it, but that's more of an action RPG, so not the classic turn-based style, and Omega Quintet really did that for me. Other than that, I've started up Borderlands 2 on the PlayStation 4 in the Handsome Collection. Man, just the subtle improvements that they made really makes that game shine. I haven't gone very far yet. I'm still basically in the opening area with Claptrap, but the game looks gorgeous on PS4. That cel-shaded look really transcends any platform it's on. And the final thing that I've been playing, both of these today, actually, the day we're recording here, have been Super Mario 64 on the Wii U. After hearing you talk about it last week, I remembered I had bought it, so I decided to play a little bit of that, since I've actually never played that game before outside of this.
Okay, shut this podcast off. Shut it down. No, I'm just kidding.
Actually, I think that's a lie. I think I might have played a friend. Yeah, I'm sure I did back when I was young. I just can't remember. But I never owned a copy of the game, I'll say that much. Never owned the N64, so finally being able to dive into that on my own and play through it, it's okay. It's fine. I hate the camera controls, though.
Yeah, it's one of those games that it's hard. It's a little hard to go back to if you didn't necessarily grow up with it. Because I guess if you grew up with it, you could see the evolution of the Mario games, and especially the camera controls, because I had kind of issue with that too when I went to replay it. But yeah, it's one of those early 3D games, so the camera is going to be, kind of an issue. It isn't absolutely terrible. There's some games from that era that are just unplayable. This one's pretty playable. You just got to rework your brain. Yeah. And go back in time pretty much.
Definitely. It's working well with the Pro Controller, though. I'll give it that.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, I had tried it with the gamepad, so I got to try it with the Pro Controller.
And the other game that I decided to fire up on the Wii U was Zombie U, which I finally found a decent copy of. decent
Nice.
priced copy of. So I decided to dive into that, and I haven't gone far yet. I've only gotten up to the first shortcut that you find back to the base, so
Yeah.
really early on. But I'll give it one thing: that game has atmosphere. Like, I was creeped out while playing through that first little bit.
Yeah, it does have pretty good atmosphere. I only played, about an hour of it, to be honest. So, wasn't really my cup of tea, but it did have some cool things going for it. It definitely uses like all the features of the gamepad.
Yeah, definitely. I like the scanner thing. That was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
So yeah, I'm hoping to dive in a bit more of that, and maybe next week I'll have more to say about that game.
Hmm.
And I guess that's going to do it for our been playing section this week. Off to a grand start to having a under 1 hour podcast. So let's dive into the news. And ho, hot diggity damn, do we ever have some news today? And well, quite honestly, it's 5 different reveal stories.
Yep.
So, Izzy, why don't you tell the people this first one, because I will botch the hell out of it because I'm so excited.
So right after we recorded our episode from last week, this news finally came out, and it was revealed that Fallout 4 is coming from Bethesda. It's going to be
Woo!
hitting a PS. Ric Flair right there is happy for it. Ric Flair's a fan of Fallout. It's coming to PS4, Xbox One, and PC. It's rumored to be coming out later this year. There isn't a hard release date yet, but I'm sure we'll see one next week at E3. And from what I've seen of the trailer, I'm actually interested in this. And this is coming from somebody who doesn't really like the Bethesda games. I guess it's their art style or art direction. I didn't like how Fallout 3 looked. This looks a lot more colorful.
Mm-hmm.
Fallout 3 was really like dark, and yeah, it just it just wasn't for me. Same thing with Skyrim. Like I don't know, the art style and the graphics. Like I didn't really get drawn into the world because that kind of pulled me out every time I looked at the art style for whatever reason. But what I've seen in this trailer, it looks really nice. And like the color palette is a lot more varied than it was in Fallout 3. So maybe now that I don't have that stopping me and, taking me out of the experience, I'll be able to enjoy one of these Fallout games finally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that trailer looked great, and it was all in-game footage, too. They were not bullshitting anybody. This is the
Yeah.
game we're getting. And I know a lot of people have complained that, oh, it looks like Fallout 3. I'm like, well, yeah, but it's updated. Like, it looks cleaner, crisper. Yeah, I'm just really, really excited about this trailer. I was sitting at my computer just waiting, watching the Twitch channel when they had the please stand by up, and yeah, I was blown away. I am absolutely excited for this game. Unlike yourself, Izzy, I'm a massive fan of the Bethesda games.
Hmm.
I never got into Oblivion, to be honest. That one
Yeah.
never hooked me, but Fallout 3, I remember picking up that game when it first came out. I believe I rented it back when there was, places that rented games.
Blockbuster
Yeah.
and such.
Yeah, I rented it. I didn't really get into it that much. I was like, it's kind of bland and whatnot. I'm not into this. And I took it back and whatnot. Several months down the line, I finally bought a copy of it because I had a couple of friends who basically wouldn't shut up about the game and urging me on, like, you got to go back to it. You got to, like, really dive into it a bit more. So, yeah, I went, bought a copy, started playing it, and, yeah, I was hooked after that. Like, many nights staying up till, like, 7, 8 a.m. in the morning playing the game. I actually have the trophies for, the Zeta Mothership DLC, where I think I gained the first trophy at like 3 a.m., The next one was marked at 5 a.m. And the last one of that DLC is marked for 11 a.m. of that same day.
Oh, wow.
So, needless to say, that game hooked the ever-loving hell out of me. And the same thing happened with Skyrim when that came out. That's pretty much all I played for like 2 months. I put in, I want to say, 250 hours into that game overall, DLC included. So, yeah. Needless to say, I love the Bethesda games, and this announcement got me really excited. And it really doesn't matter at this point what else is coming out around the time Fallout 4 launches. Fallout 4 takes the top priority for me at this time. I just can't wait to see what kind of collector's edition they put out for this one.
Yeah, that collector's edition was pretty cool with the Pip-Boy bobblehead, right? Wasn't it? In the lunchbox?
Yep.
That's the one that they got. Yeah, it's funny you said that you rented the game and then you didn't like it. I actually bought Fallout 3. I remember it was in early January after the game had come out that fall. It was one of those Target sales where the game was like maybe like $20 off or something. And I played up through the portion where you finally leave the vault. Mm-hmm. And then once I left the vault, I was just, I was like, what do I do? Where do I go? Because I had never really played a game like that didn't hold your hand. Mm-hmm. So I was just lost. I was like, I don't know what the hell's going on.
But that's the joy of like the Bethesda games, in my opinion. Though you make your own story, you go in your own direction, and
I think I just wasn't used to that at that point. But I'll definitely give this one a shot towards the end of the year. Mm-hmm. But it's another like massive open world game. Like we've had, so many in recent memory. Witcher 3 being the latest one.
Yeah.
But yeah, the trailer was really well done too. I like how it went. It did like those flashback sequences, and then it did the sequences after like the fallout. I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, that was really clever on their part. Yep. So Fallout 4, we're extremely excited. At least I am, anyway. And
there's a lot of people who are excited, to be honest. I'm one of the people who's more like, I guess my hype is reserved until it comes out, since of my experience with the previous titles. But
fair enough. And I'm sure we are going to learn more at the Bethesda E3 press conference in just a few days by the time this podcast comes out. So yeah. All right, so let's move into our next story here. And this was another game that got announced after we did our predictions. So also include the hashtag Izzy was right on this one.
Yeah.
That is the Uncharted Nathan Drake Collection was announced, and it will be out on October 9th on PlayStation 4. From Arnie Meyer on the PlayStation blog, it reads, "You've asked for it, and we listen. Today we finally get to announce that Uncharted Drake's Fortune, Uncharted 2 Among Thieves, and Uncharted 3 Drake's Deception are being released for the PlayStation 4 in Uncharted The Nathan Drake Collection, available October 9th, 2015. Now, there's going to be no multiplayer in this. Who really cares? Even though it was good, we can do without it. The team at Blue Point Games is doing the port to the PlayStation 4. They've done quite a few from what I know.
Yeah, they did the Metal Gear one, which turned out really good.
Mm-hmm. And all three games will be in 1080p with 60 frames per second.
Yes.
With better lighting, textures, and models, but also adding a range of improvements and additions across all three games, including, most importantly, photo mode and new trophies.
Oh, man.
So, yeah. And also, if you pre-order the game today, you can receive the Nathan Drake pack, which includes single-player skins of iconic Drake outfits, as well as everybody's favorite weapons, the golden AK-47 and golden 92 FS guns. If you pre-order the digital download, like Izzy already has, you get the PlayStation 4 dynamic theme as an immediate download.
Yeah, and it's a really nice theme. It's it's my favorite one that I've, gotten so far through pre-orders or buying off the store. But I am super excited for this, and it also includes a beta access for Uncharted 4, so that kind of takes the place
Hmm.
of the multiplayer portion of the game, which there's been a lot of controversy surrounding that. People are kind of disappointed that multiplayer is not included.
Hmm.
I personally rather them just focus on the three story campaigns from Uncharted 1, 2, and 3
Mm.
and not include multiplayer and not be a total disaster like the Master Chief Collection still is to this day
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
it's
I
still
remember somebody made a tweet out about that, and it's like, wow, they really are copying the Master Chief Collection. There's no
it's actually
multiplayer included either.
oh, that's a good one. I didn't think of that. And which was disappointing. I think 343 bit off more than they could chew because they did Halo 1, 2, and 3. I mean 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yep.
and they did the multiplayer for those games. So it just kind of yeah, it was they bit off more, way more than they can chew. I rather Blue Point focuses on just the campaigns and you know, because at the same time, think about it, Uncharted 4 will be out presumably before March, so
Yep.
the community will probably die off eventually anyway for the multiplayer and then move over to Uncharted 4. So
And like you said, this is coming with
yeah,
the Uncharted 4 multiplayer beta anyway, so there's your multiplayer fix if you want
yeah, I can't wait for this
it.
because I actually tried. I think one of these past weeks, I was like recording footage or something, and I put in Uncharted 3,
Hmm.
and Uncharted 3 is native 720p, and I have a 1080p Sony TV,
Yeah.
and you definitely notice that it doesn't look as good as it should.
Hmm.
So now that it's 1080p 60 frames a second, it's gonna look super crisp, and man, I just can't wait to see how it looks with all these other details and stuff. And I'm happy that they picked Blue Point Games because they
Mm.
have a track record of, you know, doing these remasters or HD collections. So they
Yep.
know what they're doing.
Hmm. Yep. It's a nice fix, and yeah, I'm thrilled for this coming as well. I'll probably hold off and get the physical edition
Hmm.
myself, but yeah, I'm really excited for this game.
I,
Games.
I'm gonna be honest. I'll probably buy the physical collection anyway, just for the hell of it. And for reference, these are the collections that they have worked on: the God of War collection for PS3, the Ico and Shadow of the Colossus collection for PS3, and the Metal Gear Solid HD collection, which came out on PS3, Xbox 360, and PlayStation Vita. So they
Wow.
have a very good track record because those HD collections are pretty damn awesome.
Hmm. Sweet. All right. Now I guess we can move onwards into our next big reveal, our
And
news story.
yeah, something that people were not expecting from what I saw
No.
from specifically Aussie Legend posted something about it that several years ago Sony was not interested in releasing Super Meat Boy on PS3, but now it's going to be coming out on PS4 and PS Vita, and it's
Yay!
also going to be debuting as a PlayStation Plus game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So yeah, this is cool. I never got a chance to play this game on, like PC or 360, but now that it's coming out on PS4 and Vita, I'll definitely give it a shot because I've heard it's a pretty damn challenging game, but it's pretty
Oh,
fun.
it is. It is incredibly challenging, but insanely rewarding when you get through a level.
Mm-hmm.
For those who want to see more, you can go to my channel and watch my Let's Play of it.
Cheap plug.
A
Cheap
little bit.
pop. Call Mick Foley.
Yeah, I was absolutely thrilled to see this news today, and like Super Meat Boy, joking aside, is probably one of my favorite platformers of all time.
Really?
Yeah, like the game is so damn good. The platforming is extremely solid. I played it on PC, and if you fucked up, it was your own fault because that game is insanely precise, or the controls anyway are really precise. And yeah, you fuck up, it's your own fault. The game ain't bugging out on you.
Yeah.
So yeah, and since it's going to be a PlayStation Plus title, I really, really hope that a lot of people will be checking this out. I even told a friend about this who also played the PC version, and even he's like, well, I guess I'm going to have to buy PlayStation Plus now because he's that excited that this is coming to PlayStation 4 and Vita.
Nice.
So,
But speaking of games that will kick your ass,
oh, yeah.
perfect transition.
Mm-hmm.
Capcom has finally decided to do something with Mega Man.
Yeah.
And that is specifically, they announced the Mega Man Legacy Collection, which is going to be coming out this summer on PS4, Xbox One, and PC. It's going to be in the 3DS sometime later this year during the winter season. And it's going to be retailing for $14.99 and include the original 6 NES Mega Man games in 1080p with some added content, some behind-the-scenes sketches, some challenge modes, trophies, and achievements. And I'm actually really surprised that they're doing this because the Mega Man series has been dormant for a while. I know you guys spoke about it on Static Screen last week that there is a new Mega Man cartoon coming out soon. And alongside this announcement, they also announced some other things that they're going to be focusing on during E3. Mm-hmm. And those are the Resident Evil 0 remaster, the Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition, so 2 other remasters.
Wait, time about all brand new games coming out here.
But they do have a brand new game, and that is Street Fighter V, which is going to be the first major event. It's going to be showing some footage of Street Fighter V, and they're going to have some sort of tournament. And so good on Capcom. Finally something from Mega Man.
Yeah.
Even if it's a rehashing. But I think it's done well. $15 for all 6 games.
Yeah. And you also
really
have
good
like
price.
the museum mode with like the collection of art and concept pieces. That's all cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they'll probably use some of the pieces from like the Udon art books that they did. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure that's probably what's gonna be included in the museum mode. And I used to own those books. I did sell them, but what was in there was really cool. The behind the scenes like sketches and stuff, and some like little blurbs under the images from like Keiji Inafune that would have details on the character sketches and all that. But
yes, it's really cool, and like you said, it's nice to see them do something with Mega Man. And as Colin Moriarty said on Colin and Greg Live today on June 8th, they're very smart in not adding 7 to the mixes with this mix too, because 7 sucks. They have the good ones, 1 through 6 in this collection.
Did 7 came out on Super Nintendo? Okay, that makes sense. Well, why they decided to leave it off. And Mega Man 8 also that came out on the PlayStation.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm really excited for this. I'll probably pick it up since it's only going to be $15. It'll be nice to play through those games again and collect trophies for them. So
yeah, they're probably going to be hard as hell.
Yeah, they
Trophies are going to be ridiculous for this game.
Yeah, if they're anything like Mega Man 9. Ugh.
Yeah.
Anywho, let's move into our final news story of the day. And I'm sure you skipped over me for doing the last one so I could butcher this name. And that is Tales of Berseria.
You got it.
I hope that's it anyways.
Yep, you got it.
Announced for PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4. Good guy Namco at it once again. Bandai Namco Games has lifted the lid on Tales of Berseria, which will be coming to both PS3 and PS4 in Japan. During its Tales of Festival, via Siliconria. The publisher revealed that this new installment will star a female lead named Velvet, who is voiced by Rinu Satu and designed by Mutsami Mata. Wow, Japan. This new JRPG is currently only confirmed for release in Japan. The Tales series is no stranger to the West, so there's a good chance this game will eventually make its way to those other territories. After all, Tales of Xillia 2 made its way to North America last year, and Tales of Zestiria looms on the horizon. So yeah, more awesomeness coming from Bandai Namco. Their JRPGs, the Tales series, are fantastic, and I would recommend that anybody buy and play them.
I got a question.
Okay.
That is, this series has become annualized, and I don't see people giving it crap. Like, everybody gives Assassin's Creed and Call of Duty crap, and there is a new Tales every year, if not more than one Tales in 1 year. Because I know Xillia 2 came out last year, and the year before Xillia, and the year before some other Tales game, and Tales of Zestiria is not even out yet, and here in the States, so
Well,
I don't know.
it's usually 18 months in between, but yes, they are annualized, but the difference between this and Assassin's Creed, they actually make good stories for these games.
Oh, okay.
And there's care put into it. Like, the battle system doesn't necessarily change all that much, but the key focus in any JRPG is the story, and the Tales games, well, they tell a good tale.
This guy.
Yeah, I guess that's why. And I mean, this isn't like a massively popular series like Assassin's Creed, so you only have like niche people like myself who fall in love with these games, so you're not going to see all that much hatred towards it, especially if they keep up the good quality of the games. And there have been, mistakes in the past. Tales of Symphonia 2, from what I know, that's one I haven't played. I've heard fairly bad things about that game.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they're usually really good quality. So yeah, there we go. A brand new Tales game. Most likely coming next year to North America.
Yeah. Sounds good for the Tales fans.
Yep.
I just wanted to hear like the perspective of a fan, because I know there's other series like Persona that you don't see a mainline entry very often.
Yeah.
Like between Persona 4, which came out in 2008, Persona 5's coming out this year. So that's a 7-year gap. And I know there's stuff in between, like the Persona dancing game and Golden, which was a re-release and all that. But
yeah, you don't.
Yeah, I'm just interested, between the different JRPGs if they're, putting too many of these out, especially for a game that lasts, 40, 50, 60 hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I say that they're like really good quality. On the flip side, they're not as good quality as like the Persona games, which yes, they get a ton more care into them.
Mm-hmm.
Same can be said like for Fallout 4 that we talked about earlier. This is the first Fallout game we've had in 7 years now.
Yeah, I think it came out 2008, Fallout 3.
Yeah, I think
I'm
so.
not mistaken.
Because I was still in university when that came out, so yeah, Jesus, that's a while ago.
Yeah, that was my first year of college, so yeah, 2008.
Wow. Yeah, there you go. So, with the news out of the way, it is time to dive into our topic of the week.
Top.
All right, so last week we had the big E3 blowout where we went through all the press conferences and whatnot. So this week we're just going to relax back and just, let you guys know a little bit more about us. So, who we are and what kind of games we like and enjoy, As you've gathered so far, I'm a big JRPG nut, and you're about to see that here in our topic of the week, because we're going to talk about some of our favorite games of all time.
Yeah, this was difficult to put together.
I pulled up a list I did a while ago. It was
Yeah,
fairly
I
easy.
had to look through my game collection, and first what I did was just things off my head,
Mm-hmm.
that would pop up right away, and then I quickly like surveyed my game collection and checked out, some additional games, but I got too many damn games on this list.
Well, why don't you tell us about one of those games then?
So yeah, it's funny because I broke off my lists into like Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox, and Sega.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some like third-party stuff in here, but I'll put it under whatever brand system that I played it on.
Yep.
But yeah, Nintendo is right up here on the top of my list, and there's three Mario games. Which are Super Mario World, Super Mario 64, and Super Mario Galaxy.
Hmm.
These games are all incredibly special. Super Mario World is probably one of the first games I ever played. That was on the Super NES, of course. Such a classic platformer. My favorite 2D Mario game. I've gone back and, played the originals on NES, but I I like them, but they didn't stand out to me as much as Super Mario World. And I guess it's just my bias because it's the first one that I played, of course. If I would have played, I would have been alive when the other ones were around. Well, and I would have played them, then maybe those would be my favorites. And then moving into Super Mario 64, man, this game was like groundbreaking at the time for so many reasons. It's so well done the way they have, it's structured in terms of the different levels, and you get different stars and unlock other levels, and you jump into these paintings, and there's like multiple different missions that you could do within one level, and you could even do other missions that you didn't pick when you start the level, which I think is a really cool design feature. One of the first like full 3D games that I played. Man, the soundtrack for this is amazing. Really, the soundtrack for all the Mario games that I picked are amazing. And not to keep it moving, the next one, Super Mario Galaxy, this is, man, it's so good. Like everything, like this game might be like one of the most like perfect games like ever made. Because the music is fantastic, the gameplay so good, the level design, the art style. Like for a game that was on the Wii, when you compare it to like the Xbox 360 and the PS3, like this looks so good. I really wish Nintendo would have done HD re-release of this, but I've seen it recently. I just went on YouTube and started watching footage of a bunch of games running on the Dolphin emulator, and this game looks freaking amazing running on the Dolphin emulator, which I think I'm gonna try to get myself to play it on. But I remember playing this for the first time, and it just made me feel like I was a kid again. Like the first intro sequences of the game, and the music started playing, and I was just playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it just made me feel like a kid again. Like it brought me back to Super Mario 64. It brought me back to Super Mario World. But yeah, those are like my favorite Mario games. The other ones are always quality games, of course, but those are really the ones that stick out for me in particular. So I'll kick it over to you before I start gushing any more about these Mario games. So as you can see, I'm a big fan of platformers, both 2D and 3D.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Super Mario World's up there for me too. Like yourself, it was one of the first games I ever played, and it does hold a special place in my heart too. Though at the top of my list, my two favorite games of all time, going to the Final Fantasy series, and
Hmm.
those games really were the beginnings of hooking me onto that turn-based RPG style with just an incredible story and incredible well-developed characters around it. And the two in the series that hold a place in my heart so much are Final Fantasy VI, because that is probably one of the best well-told stories in any game, in my opinion, and has one of the best villains of all time, Kefka. And the game that like tops my list when anybody asks me what's your favorite game of all time, Final Fantasy IX. That
Really?
Yeah, that one is probably got me really hooked and fallen in love with games. It is actually the only Final Fantasy game to date that I will always keep a physical copy with me at all times.
Hmm.
I have two. One's back at my parents' place with the rest of my PS1 collection, and I have a physical copy here with me today. The characters in that game were just so enjoyable. Zidane was a fun, quirky hero. He broke the stereotype where your main character's got to be a suited up guy in armor with a big ass sword and stuff like that. It's like, no, he's a thief. He's quick and skilled. And just his kind of Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones type attitude to everything was just fantastic. And then you had the mage, Vivi, which is my favorite character of all time in any video game.
Mm.
Who is, I don't know, I connected really well to him growing up because throughout school and that, I was the guy that always get picked on and whatnot. So, and Vivi was the character who was a bit shadowed out. He was always on his own, and he didn't feel like he fit into anything. So there was that really connection I had to him there. Yeah, just the story of that game, the Shakespearean romance and everything, it was just so well told. And it's definitely a game I can go back to at any given time. Uh, yeah, the only other Final Fantasy games which even come close to those two for me are Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VIII. 4 is pretty good. The original is okay, in my opinion. But yeah, those two definitely right at the top of the list for me.
Nice. Yeah, I don't hear a lot of people pick Final Fantasy 9. They usually go for 6 or 7,
Mm-hmm.
or one of the earlier ones, depending on their age. If they really got introduced to the series on the NES,
Mm-hmm.
then they'll go for one of those. But yeah, it's a series that I wish I would have got into at an earlier age. Maybe I would have had that connection like you have,
Mm-hmm.
which unfortunately I don't have.
Well, on the
Uh,
bright side, you don't have the utter disappointment that came for years after 10.
well, I did play some of 10, and I enjoyed what I played of it, to be honest. But
Yeah,
yeah,
10's
I
good.
could see why people didn't like it though.
Well, no,
Like,
10's good. I mean, just
mhm.
anything after that. 12
Oh,
was
okay.
okay
I
right
did
up
play
until the end.
13. That was just hot garbage. So
Oh.
even I could say that. But moving into something that I do like and wrapping up my Nintendo list here. And the next series that I have here is the Donkey Kong Country series, another platformer series, specifically Donkey Kong Countries 1, 2, and Tropical Freeze.
Ooh,
3,
going recent?
yeah, to be honest, 3 I didn't really play on the Super Nintendo. I played it, years later, like at my cousin's, and I didn't own it. And Donkey Kong Country Returns was good, but it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. But the original Donkey Kong Country is just like it was really impressive at the time with the graphics engine that they had, and then the music composed by David Wise, and then the sequel just upped the ante, and they had like more diverse levels. You got to play as Diddy Kong this time with Dixie Kong, and that's probably my favorite, if I want to be honest with myself, probably Donkey Kong Country 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tropical Freeze being the most recent one, which was my game of the year for last year. It pretty much was what I wanted Donkey Kong Country Returns to be, which Donkey Kong Country Returns, I thought it was a fantastic like reimagining or like revival of the series. But Tropical Freeze just the music really helped it. I gotta be honest, because the soundtrack is just incredible for that game. Even to this day, I just listen to any of the tracks and it just gets me really emotional. There's something really magical about David Wise's music. But the gameplay was fantastic, the art style, the animations. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I just really love the Donkey Kong Country games in general. The last thing on my Nintendo list here is a Zelda game, of course. You got to throw in a Zelda game. And mine is Wind Waker, pretty much the first Zelda game that I really sat down, played, and completed. I didn't grow up with Zelda, to be honest. The first one I played was, strangely, A Link's Awakening on the Game Boy, but I didn't understand what the hell was going on. Like, you wake up on the beach and you start moving around. There's this giant egg in the logo, and I'm like, as a kid, I don't know what's going on. I was used to, like, Super Mario Land.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, of course, I would go to Puerto Rico during the summers, and I believe my cousins moved to Puerto Rico, I want to say in 1999. I want to say it was 99 or 2000, around that time period. And they had an N64. They were big fans of N64. And my cousin Isabel, she would always be playing Ocarina of Time. So, I would sit down with her and I would watch her. And I didn't, for whatever reason, I didn't know of Ocarina of Time at the time, which is stupid. I guess I was more of a PlayStation guy at the time. But I just thought it was fantastic. And then Wind Waker came out, and I remember renting it from Blockbuster, and I didn't really get it. I didn't understand it. But later on, it's sort of like what you said about Fallout 3, that you rented it and you didn't get it. But
Mm-hmm.
later on, you went and picked it up. So I went out, later on in that year, and I bought it, and I played it, and I just fell in love. Like, I finally understood why people, like, love the Zelda series. I just love the exploration, even though it could get a little tedious and boring when you're traveling around the world and sailing. It really didn't bother me at the time, to be honest, but I could see why some people, they didn't like it. And then just the art style, I wasn't one of the people that was hating on it. Like, a lot of people hated the cel-shaded look of the time. And I loved it, and I love the music. The soundtrack is fantastic. The gameplay, the boss battles, the characters, like the cute designs of, like, your grandmother and, like, your sister and all these different characters. Like, it was really the game that really introduced me to Zelda, even if I had played previous ones. So yeah, that's wrapping up my Nintendo section.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll throw it over to you.
Well, since you ended off with a Zelda game, I'll start with a Zelda game this time around, and the one that holds up for me as one of my favorite games of all time is A Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo, and I'm pretty sure that was the first Zelda game I ever played, and I guess that's kind of why it still holds up for me. Just I don't think back when I first had a Super Nintendo, like, I had ever experienced such an open world game like that before.
Hmm.
It was like before I really got into RPGs, to be quite honest. So it was something new for me, and yeah, just like the exploration and just the storyline in that game was so fantastic with the light world and the dark world. Yeah, there is something really special for A Link to the Past. Going back into the realm of JRPGs again, three others that really stand out for me as some of my favorite games of all time are Star Ocean Till the End of Time for the Super Nintendo. It is probably one of the very few JRPGs that I think I did every single thing in. Just one second, phone.
They're calling you.
Fucking telemarketers. But yeah, it was one of the very few JRPGs I think that I did absolutely everything in. Like, I must have sunk in over 300 hours into this game back in the day, and for me it was pretty easy because I lived in a little rural community and I'd maybe get like 3-4 games a year, if that, so I had a lot of time to kill on like single games. But yeah, the story in Star Ocean was just, it opened up my mind to so many things. It got me to love like the sci-fi genre. The characters into that game were so well done, so well developed, and the twists and turns that the storyline went into was just incredible. You think it's going one way, then be a left turn, M. Night Shyamalan good twist into something else. So
It's
yeah,
a twist.
so yeah, that game incredibly high up on my list. And the next one on my list holds special place in a lot of people's hearts, and was recently rediscovered by a lot of people on the Wii U eShop, and of course I'm talking about
Yep.
Earthbound. And fuck for the NES Amiibo being EB Games exclusive. But other than that, yeah, Earthbound it's such a quirky JRPG which made fun of American culture. And back in the day, I never owned a copy, but I rented it at my local corner store when, those things did exist.
Mm-hmm.
I remember renting it one day, playing through it, having to take it back the next, but renting it out again and renting it out again and again just so I could finish the thing. I was that hooked onto it. And yeah, for years after that, that game just, it just held a special place in my heart. And I always wanted to own a copy. I own the Wii U version now, and yeah, it was one of those games that really, like Final Fantasy 6 and 9 and Star Ocean, that really made me fall in love with JRPGs. It was actually one of the very first JRPGs I think I ever played, and it made me fall in love with that turn-based style. And going along with this, another game from the Super Nintendo which did that for me and is widely popular is Chrono Trigger.
Nice.
That game, again, tooting that same horn again, the story, characters, just amazingly well done, and is another reason why I love that JRPG genre so very much.
Yeah. I wish I would have got into JRPGs when I was a little kid. Any RPGs, period.
Mm-hmm.
As you can see, like from most of the stuff I mentioned, much of the stuff that I've mentioned has been really gameplay focused. It hasn't really been story focused because I guess my early years as a gamer was more about that, just the actual gameplay, not the story so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, now that I've spoken about Nintendo, it would just make sense to go over to Sega.
Sega.
I never had, many Sega devices or consoles. I really just had the Genesis and the Dreamcast. I never had a Saturn or a Master System. And of course, after the Dreamcast, they bowed out of the console market, which is unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Sega's mascot is and will always be Sonic the Hedgehog. So I have two Sonic games here. The first one is Sonic 2 on the Sega Genesis, like Super Mario World, one of the first games that I ever played. Very memorable for me because I remember playing it when I was a kid with my mom, and she hated Sonic. Like, she hated Sonic so bad, particularly the what's it called? The chemical zone in Sonic 2. Where I think I don't remember which act it is, but where it starts getting filled with water,
Mm-hmm.
and then Sonic starts to drown, and you hear the like that would freak her out, and she would hate it, and she would always drown. It was so funny, and like we played as the two-player, and you could play, of course, as Sonic and Tails, and just very memorable, like level design and music, and just a cool character at the time. Because you had to be there during the 90s to really understand how cool Sonic was,
Mm-hmm.
just from the standpoint of the character design. So Sonic 2, still one of my favorite Sonic games. The next Sonic game here, which is going to be a shocker to a lot of people, because I know a lot of people who hate this game.
Sonic Boom, right?
No, not Sonic Boom. Sonic Adventure on the Dreamcast, which I know it's not that great of a game, but it's one of those games that I've played like several times. And I went back a few years ago and I played it again. I'm like, wow, this is so fun. Like, I don't know. It's like it has issues with the camera. Like
Hmm.
Sonic is like in a world with like humans. Like it really doesn't make sense. But the soundtrack is awesome. I think the level design's really cool. I like collecting all like the different chaos emeralds and fighting a Dr. Well, he's not Robotnik anymore. He's Eggman in this one. This is the first game that I believe they called him Eggman. And it was just so fun and fighting Chaos as a villain, playing as a different characters. Like you could play as Tails, Knuckles, Big the Cat. It's just a very memorable game. One of the first games I played on Dreamcast. I remember actually playing this at a demo unit. I don't remember where it was. It might have been I think way back in the day, like CompUSA used to sell consoles, like before they went out of business, like in the 90s. I want to say it was like a CompUSA or one of those places. I know it wasn't like a Best Buy or a Target. And I remember going up to the machine. I'm like, oh, it's Sonic the Hedgehog. I hadn't played Sonic since the Genesis. And I saw and started playing it. The controller was really weird because the Dreamcast controller was so ahead of its time with the VMUs and the design of the controller with the triggers. And I remember playing this game with a buddy of mine. He was at the time like my best friend, and I would go over his house, and we would play through this game all in one sitting because I didn't have a memory card at the time. I didn't have enough money to buy a VMU at the time. I just had the Dreamcast and Sonic Adventure and maybe like one other game. And we would just sit down and play through the whole game and get to the end, and we would quote the stupid sayings that Eggman would say, like, get a load of this, and then he'd start flaying his hands around in the final boss battle, and like when he would hold up the Chaos Emeralds and he's not even gripping it, it's just like sticking out his hands. Like it's so cheesy stuff that it's just like really special to me.
Hmm.
And same thing with this next game that I'm going to be talking about. And that is Shenmue, the original on the Sega Dreamcast. Another game that I played with my buddy. I didn't own this at the time. I own it now, of course. But I had my Dreamcast, like I was saying, I would go over his house. And he had a neighbor who was like a big Sega fan. And he was like a huge Dreamcast supporter. He had like so many Dreamcast games. Like this was his shit. Like he loved Sega. So he had all these games and he let us borrow this game called we called it Shenmue at the time. Like we didn't even know how to pronounce it. And we were like, oh, he got Shenmue, like Shenmue or whatever the hell we said. We didn't know what we were saying. And he let us borrow it. And I remember putting the game in and just playing it and like you're like this guy and his dad gets killed by Lon D and these men's in a black coat, and then you're like in his house, and there's a Saturn in his under his TV, and this is in the 80s, and like you're opening drawers looking for stuff. Like it just blew my mind. Like I had never done something like this, and this was before I played, like GTA 3, or that was even out at the time, because I must have played this like early 2001, because this came out at least 2000 for the Dreamcast, and it just blew my mind, and I don't think we ever finished it because I think I had lent my buddy a Dreamcast so he could play it, or his neighbor lent him so he could finish it. Then years later, I picked it up again, which probably was a few years ago, and I sat down and I played through it, and it holds up today. There are some awkward things like the voice acting is very cheesy in spots and the acting overall, but there's something very, very special about this game. The world, that you're in, like it was just so mind-blowing at the time that you're in a city and the weather changes and you could interact with everybody. Everybody had a voice. Like it was so revolutionary, so ahead of its time. Still to this day, I want to see a Shenmue 3. I haven't played Shenmue 2 because I know there isn't going to be a Shenmue 3, so why even bother? I actually want to get the import because I do have the original Xbox version, but I want to play it on the Dreamcast. And the import's starting to get expensive, to be honest, the PAL version. So hopefully I could pick that up one day. But just so revolutionary, so ahead of its time. That's one of my favorite games of all time.
Nice, nice. I'll end things off for me here just by mentioning a couple of my other favorite JRPGs of all time. One of more recent memory, Shin Megami Tensei Persona 4 Golden. I'd only played the original on PS2 briefly, never got into it, but Golden on the Vita, man. Last year when I went on vacation, I took my PS3 with me and a bunch of games. I was like, yeah, I'm going to get through a lot of these while I'm home. I sunk about 50 hours of Persona 4 Golden in like 5 days while I was home. That was the only thing I like played because I got hooked into it. It was just so fantastic. Other than that, Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars holds up for me. Really hope they release it on the Wii U eShop soon. And put Gino into Smash because he needs to be in Smash. Going to the Sony side of things, The Legend of Dragoon on the PlayStation 1. Yeah, I love that game. That game is so fantastic and so underrated. And God, how I would love for them to do a sequel or even a remake of that game. I think it would be awesome. The combat system alone is so good in that game. Other than that, Wild Arms series 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, they all hold up for me. The Dragon Quest series, especially 8, Journey of the Cursed King. That one, I think, was the first Dragon Quest game I ever played, and yeah, fell in love with that on the PlayStation 2. And I remember that game being so friggin' hard, too. Other than that, Disgaea series holds up for me. Shadow Hearts from the New World and Covenant are two of my favorite JRPGs. And the Suikoden series. Fuck you, Capcom, but still, the Suikoden series is so damn good in my opinion. And trying to get all 108 characters in every game is a mind-blowing challenge in itself. But yeah, that pretty much does it for me. Outside of JRPGs, stuff like The Last of Us, Uncharted 2, Telltale's The Walking Dead Season 1, Skyrim, XCOM, Enemy Unknown. All those games for me is great. And if you can't tell, for me, story pretty much matters. Yeah. Yes, JRPGs and most importantly, story above all holds up for me.
Yeah, I think you meant Konami, right? With Suikoden.
Yep.
Yeah, because you say I thought you said Capcom.
I thought I said Konami. Well, my apologies to Capcom if I said fuck you, Capcom. Fuck you, Konami.
We got it right this time. But yeah, I forgot to mention during the Shenmue talk that I love the soundtrack. It might be my favorite soundtrack of all time. But that's like a whole other discussion that we could have. Moving on from Sega, let's dive into Xbox, the Xbox brand, and there's only one title here.
Finish the fight.
It's so obvious. And that is the original Halo on the original Xbox, because I can't call it the Xbox One anymore. This game, for me...
technically it is on the Xbox One as well.
Oh, that's true. It is on the Master Chief Collection, and it is on 360 with the remastered version. But this game for me is so special. It really like introduced me to first-person shooters. Even if I had played them before this, I had played, back in the day, I had played some of Doom, some Wolfenstein, but I think I was really too young to really comprehend and understand those games. So this game came out at the right time. Came out in 2001 at the launch of the original Xbox. I was 11 at the time, so I could, understand this more. It was one of those first games that I got because my aunt, she pre-ordered the Xbox for me in Puerto Rico, and she got me the original Halo, Project Gotham, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2X. and she shipped that out once it was released. And I picked those games because of things that I had seen probably in GamePro or EGM at the time. I remember my first exposure to Halo was just like a small screenshot in one of the Best of E3 magazines that they would do every year. And I was like, oh, that looks cool. And then I got the game and I started playing it. And just from the beginning, like just like the Gregorian chant of the oh, which everybody knows about Halo now. It was just so different. Like I had never heard anything like that in a game before, and I started playing it and how story focused this game was, and how you cared about the characters and the voice acting was very well done, the interactions between the characters, and this is kind of the turning point for me where story became very important. Like as you saw all the games that I had talked about to this point, really just gameplay.
Hmm.
Once the original Halo hit, like story started becoming more important to me and just the characters like Commander Keyes, the Master Chief himself, Cortana, and then the enemies like the Covenant and the Flood. Like it was very special. And yeah, it was just so groundbreaking for me. I really hadn't played something like it at the time, and it still holds up in my opinion. I went through the Master Chief Collection, I think, before I sold the Xbox One, and actually played through this, and it still holds up, and it's still my favorite Halo. I think the impact was so big that none of the other ones were ever able to top it for me. Like 2 came out, and to be honest, 2 to me was a disappointment. I didn't want to play as you know the like the Covenant portion of that. Um, then like the ending of that, and then Halo 3 came out. Halo 3 is very good. Then they did all the side games like Reach and ODST. Reach I didn't like. ODST I enjoyed. Halo 4 was pretty good, but they just never topped it for me. And that was really the only game that I had attached to the Microsoft brand, to the Xbox brand. So moving on from that, finally the last section that I have here is PlayStation. And some of these are story-based games and some aren't, but a lot of these probably are in one way or another. So let's start off with Journey here, which really isn't a story-based game unless you I guess it goes into what you put into it, right? And what you interpret the game to mean. But for such a short game, it was so groundbreaking and so deep and so profound. The art direction, the soundtrack, the simplicity in its design. Like you don't do much in that game, beyond just walking around and finding other people who are in the world and like doing the little chirp that the character does and interacting with them, and you don't have any like communications with the other people who are in the world, but it just feels so strange when you see it. You're like, oh, hey, there's somebody else in this world. Then you realize like, oh, it's like another actual human being. Like it isn't just a random NPC in the game. And then as you progress through the game and you start going up the mountain and it becomes more difficult, and then that ending, I just cried my eyes out with the ending. Like it was so powerful, so emotional. Moving into another very emotional game for me, Beyond Two Souls, which I know a lot of people hate, but it was very special for me. Another game that's very story based, very very emotional for me. I really connected with Ellen Page's character Jodie. It felt like out of all these games that I've mentioned, like a character that I really know, like person I grew up with. And that's strange to say because this is a game. Like I really have no connection to Ellen Page. This is just a character, but it was so well done. It is goofy in spots here and there. Sure, there are issues with it, but I overlooked that because the ending and the story was trying to tell so powerful. Now, another story game, The Last of Us, a game that now I could say is one of my favorite games of all time, but at the time that I was playing it, I wasn't too sure because I wasn't happy with the ending. Like I was really, really mad at the ending, but then I understood where they were coming from, and it just kind of grew on me. And as the weeks went on after I played it, I kept thinking about the game and the story and the relationship between Joel and Ellie. Um, Moving into some series here, which is kind of hard to pick one in particular, the Uncharted series, which I love. Basically a modern Indiana Jones. My favorite is 3. Just great voice acting. 2 was really the game that shifted. Um, I think it was kind of like the original Halo in that it shifted how games were made to because of how cinematic it was. Of course, there was games before this like Metal Gear Solid that were cinematic, but not to the level of this, and it kind of changed the industry in that direction. 3 is my favorite. The God of War series, probably number 3 is my favorite in that case too, but just very, very fun hack and slash gameplay. I like Greek mythology, so it was just something very that spoke to me. Tearaway on the Vita, which another game that a lot of people don't like, but I thought it was fantastic and one of the most unique games that Sony has done. Now moving into some third-party stuff that I played on PlayStation, and you mentioned one of them, and that is The Walking Dead Season 1. It sucks that there's so many games from Telltale nowadays because this game was so special at the time. Your relationship with Clementine it was so amazing. Like I hadn't experienced anything like this before. Like I felt like I was the character's like father or father figure or older brother, and you were trying to take care. And then that end where you had to do that inevitable decision and what happens, like I just stood through the credits and there was tears like flowing out of my eyes. Like it was incredible, like really what they did. And it's a shame that Telltale has done so much stuff, which in my opinion has lessened the effect of these games. But another third-party game, GTA Vice City, my favorite in the franchise. 3 was a landmark game, but Vice City was the really one for me that I really, really loved just because of the 80s settings. The licensed music really helped.
Oh, yeah.
Where you had Michael Jackson, you had like Run DMC, you had like salsa music because it was, essentially like Miami, but they called it Vice City, and just the characters with Tommy Vercetti and Lance and like the whole Miami Vice meets Scarface meets like gangster movies. Like it was just so fun.
Yeah,
It was so crazy, man.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one. That's up there on my favorites list as well.
Yeah, that's one game I wish they would return to that setting for the next Grand Theft Auto, like the 80s Miami setting. They did do Vice City Stories, but I never got the chance to play that. But another like third-party game on the PlayStation, and it's really been like an exclusive here and there, but this one's particularly exclusive to PS3, and that is Metal Gear Solid 4. This game was amazing, both from like, graphics and gameplay with the different boss designs and everything. I got introduced to Metal Gear kind of late, to be honest. I didn't play Metal Gear Solid on the original PlayStation, which I really missed the boat on that. It wasn't until the PS2 that I played Metal Gear Solid 2. And then I played some of 3, and then 4 came out on the PS3, and that just like blew my mind and really made me a big Metal Gear fan. And yeah, that's about it. In terms of my games, probably another third-party game would be the Batman Arkham franchise. Particularly my favorite is still Arkham Asylum. I know a lot of people like Arkham City better, but Arkham Asylum was a game that was it wasn't supposed to work. Let's be honest. Like, it was coming from a brand new studio who had no track record, Rocksteady, British studio, if I'm not mistaken. It's a licensed game. It's Batman, which we hadn't seen a good game in years, probably since like Super Nintendo, but it somehow worked. Like, and it pretty much like took the Batman from my childhood, the one from the animated series, and the Joker from my childhood from the animated series, Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy, and they put him in this game, and Paul Dini wrote the storyline, and they brought all these characters, and it just wasn't supposed to work. And I remember seeing this game and talking to my buddy David, who's also a big Batman fan, and we were like, oh yeah, there's this new game coming out. It looks cool. I hope it doesn't suck. That's what we were saying. And I remember it was supposed to come out in June. It got delayed to August. And we were like disappointed, but we were still like, I hope it doesn't suck. Then it comes out in August and it blows our fucking minds. Like it was one of the most amazing experiences. Like you felt like Batman, like they included, like the detective mode, and then you had all his gadgets and weapons, and the combat was flawless. Like it's still probably the best combat, to be honest, in terms of hand-on-hand like combat like that. It was just so amazing and so revolutionary. Like I think still to this day, like the Batman games haven't been beat by any other superhero license that I could think of. I know like there was Spider-Man games here and there that have been real good, like Spider-Man 2, Ultimate Spider-Man on PS2, but nothing has really topped it at this point that I could think of. And probably won't for a while. Maybe now that the license, like Disney's actually protecting its characters, the Marvel characters, maybe we'll see something fantastic from Captain America, Iron Man, or as people say, Sega's no longer making those crappy games. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That wraps up my list there of like my favorite games. I know I had like 20 some games, but
I'm sure we can go on and on
yeah.
with a ton more.
But those are what came to mind when I, thought of things off my head, and then I looked through my game collection. So,
All right then. So, well, guys, we'd like to hear from you what your favorite games of all time are. So that brings us to our questions and comments section. We have no questions and comments this week. I am disappointed in you all.
Yeah, we don't.
But yeah, we'd love to hear from you guys. You've got to know a little bit more about us. We'd love to hear a bit more about you. So yeah, let us know down below what some of your favorite games of all time are. And please shoot us some questions if you want to know other things about us. What other types of games we like, what's our favorite storylines, and all that kind of jazz. So please hit us up in the comment section below. And I do believe that's going to do it for another episode of Glitched Out. So, Izzy, without further ado, why don't you take us away?
So thanks everybody for, taking time out of their day and listening to our show and us ramble for over an hour about our favorite games of all time. Like Lord X said, give us, or leave us, I should better say, comments in the comment section down below. Tell us what are some of your favorite games of all time. For Lord X, I am Izzy, aka Israel Pacheco 89, and we are